Hi, I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal,
and you're listening to Eating W's.
eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
So, on today's episode of Eating W's, we have Callan and I's split mock draft. Now, I know this is kind of a weird little thing, but Callan was telling me about it, and I really liked it, so I thought, hell, we might as well do it. So, Callan will take all the odd picks, starting with number 1 and ending with 31, and I'll take all the even picks, starting with 2 and ending with, of course, 32. So, just a little switch up. It's so we don't have to each make our own mock draft. We could kind of sit down together and make one single mock draft. And then my favorite part about it was kind of having to react, not knowing what the other person was going to do, and then having to react to the board instead of kind of placing it all out in your head. It was more realistic, so I like doing it that way. So, we'll just jump right into it. So, to start off with number 1, Callan, who do you have the Jaguars taking?
Well, in my mock draft that we did, that was mine, I had them taking Ekwem Iguanu. And so I'm sticking with that because they franchise tag Cam Robinson, who was their left tackle, and Ekwem Iguanu could be their right tackle. So they got both bookend tackles, and I think that's the right pick for him. Plus, he's the better run blocker, I believe, out of all the top offensive line prospects.
Give James Robinson some room in front of him, and he can be a dangerous man. He might be doing that power run and riding it all the way to, hopefully more than, 3 wins? What did they have last season?
2 wins?
If they want to help Lawrence out, getting a power run game going will very much do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on to number 2, we got the Detroit Lions, and it's all I could do here to not put Kyle Hamilton again like I had in my mock draft. But I'm going to do a kind of, not really quote, but just a saying from Daniel Jeremiah, who is, of course, an NFL analyst and huge into mock drafts. And he said, I don't believe in positional value. He said, I don't get it. I don't get what people see. But it's evident from prior drafts and what people are saying in this year's draft that NFL teams do believe in positional value.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have Kyle Hamilton here pretty much because of that. I really like that philosophy because I'm the same way. I don't believe in it, but I want to try to make a realistic mock draft because at this point I'm trying to guess what's going to happen. I want to try to be as accurate as possible. So I'm just jumping into the consensus, forming with the masses. I got the Lions taking Aiden Hutchinson here. Probably the highest floor of anybody in this draft, maybe. He's going to be a great player. I don't think he's going to be a generational talent, but if you can get a great player for the next 8-10 years in Detroit there, keep him in Michigan, it's worth that second overall pick, so I got him going there.
Yep, the hometown kid stays in his hometown. I like that. That's where I had him going to. They need the edge help since they released Trey Flowers, and that's a young stud to get in there and take his spot.
So, moving on to number 3.
Number 3, the Texans. I have them taking Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame. And let me tell you now, if the Houston Texans really believe that Davis Mills is their cornerstone on offense, Kyle Hamilton could be their cornerstone on defense. And that's someone that you could really build that whole defense around. Lovie Smith is going to love a player like that. He hasn't had a safety like that since Mike Brown and the 2000 Chicago Bears. I mean,
it's a throwback.
Yes, it is. There we go. And that's the player he reminds me of. And plus, there's some that would say he is the best player overall in this draft.
Me.
Mm-hmm.
He is by far my favorite player overall in this draft. Certainly. Moving on to number 4, I have the New York Jets, and I have them taking edge Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, if anyone's going to get the full ability out of Thibodeau, there's so many questions about his effort, whether he actually loves the game, whether he's going to go to the next level and continue to play where he did in college, because I'll admit it myself even, he had very questionable film in his last season there in Oregon. But if anyone's going to get it out of Thibodeau, it's going to be Robert Saleh there in New York. He is just a great overall coach. He's a leader of men, and he's going to get this guy hyped up to play football, and he's going to get Kayvon Thibodeau to his true potential in the NFL.
Yeah, another one that's possibly, was looked at as the best player in the draft. I mean, he's a freak athlete. kind of took last year off knowing that he was going to be a first-round pick. You know, it's kind of one of those college things. He reminds me of Rashawn Gary. Everyone questioned his motor and his work ethic coming out of Michigan after being such a highly rated prospect. Well, I'd say right now he's becoming the leader of the Packers defense. So if he can turn out anything like that, I think that'd be solid for the Jets.
I like it.
I said solid, not Sala.
Good point out there. Make sure to know. Moving on to number 5 in Callan's pick for the New York Giants.
I mean, the Giants get a gift here, and they get Evan Neal, the stalwart left tackle. I mean, you know, how can they not? He's the best player available now. Yes, they do have Andrew Thomas, but they can move Andrew Thomas to the right side. Plus, they really have to protect Daniel Jones. If they want him to be their franchise, he needs to be protected because he had no time to do anything. That's why he led their team in rushing. All he could do was run around and scramble. So this way, you just keep stockpiling great offensive linemen, Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal. Eventually, a wall will get built.
Certainly. I don't trust Daniel Jones. I'll be the first to say it. I hope he can turn his career around and do a little better. I don't think he will. But that new regime there in New York seems to think that he is the answer. So what better way to help him out than give him some time in the pocket? I like that pick. Moving on to number 6, I have the Carolina Panthers. And I have a little bit of a first shocker of this draft, if you want to say that. I have the Panthers taking Kenny Pickett. Now, Matt Rule, he's in a crossroads. He is on the hot seat, to say the least. And they need to do something there in Carolina. And he needs to do it now. And I think the quarterback is the only thing they need on that roster. They have a pretty decent young roster everywhere there in Carolina, except for that question mark there with Sam Darnold. They signed him to his 5th-year option, team option, so I think they actually still start him, even if they do draft Pickett here at 6. But Pickett is the most NFL-ready quarterback in this class. So if Darnold seems like he starts slipping again, or if Darnold gets injured, you can throw him in there and still have some success and have him run that offense. And I'm pretty much just making this because Matt Rule needs to do something or else he might not have a job by the end of this season, let alone next season.
That seems to be the way the NFC South is going. You know, he's the longest tenured NFC South head coach now.
Wow. That is
Isn't that
insane,
crazy?
but he
I know,
certainly
but
is.
yeah.
At what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. Yep, because Arthur Smith, he just finished his first year, and then Dennis Allen and Todd Bowles are new this year.
Jeez, that is crazy.
And he's already on the hot seat, as Matt Rule.
Yeah, and he's on the hot seat.
And he's supposed to be the senior. No. But, I mean, I do agree that Pickett is the most NFL-ready quarterback. I can't remember who it was that said it. It might have been Daniel Jeremiah, but he said that he doesn't have the best arm talent, but he's the best quarterback in this draft. And I think just in terms of reading defenses, the pro-style offense, he is the most pro-ready. I don't know about Carolina. I think that's a reach. I think that's a panic move. And if that really happens, then I think that other teams will also panic, as you'll see with the next pick.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. But moving on to number 7, I'll throw it back over to Callan with our first trade. I forgot to mention, but we do have trades in this draft. So
with the Panthers going and taking Kenny Pickett, that causes the next quarterback needy team to panic. You're thinking Atlanta? No. The Seahawks trade up in front of Atlanta from 9 to 7 to select Malik Willis.
I like
quarterback out of Liberty. I think that he fits the best in Seattle. I know I had Desmond Ridder in my mock draft. I kind of want to go for a little bit of shock value there. But I think that, in all honesty, it will be Malik Willis, especially after seeing his pro day. He just seems the most dynamic possible quarterback. He's the one with the highest ceiling, I believe. And this way he can still sit behind Drew Lock for a season if you really want to, run it with Drew Lock, see what you get. Otherwise, I mean, look at when they drafted Russell Wilson. They had just signed Matt Flynn to a 5-year deal. And then they ended up trading Flynn to the Raiders. So maybe they draft Malik Willis and he ends up more prepared than people think.
I like the pick. Definitely a developmental guy, but a lot of potential there. And this is kind of a side note, but if Desmond Ridder goes even first round, I'm never doing draft scouting again because I've watched the film on this guy and I personally don't see how you warrant a first round pick on him, but I could be wrong. So, moving on to 8 with the aforementioned Atlanta Falcons, I have them taking another receiver still. I have them picking who I already had them taking in my last mock draft in Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. And the main reason I love this pick here and I love this fit for Burks in going into Atlanta is I think he can be exactly what Cordell Patterson is. Maybe go a little more wide receiver heavy while Patterson is a little more running back heavy, but he can line up anywhere on the field and make plays. He's got a big body, he's got some hands, he has great open field ability. So why not kind of recreate what you already were able to do in that hybrid guy in Cordell Patterson and get a new one in Treylon Burks, and even let them go hand in hand and really just confuse the hell out of NFL defenses on who's going to be where at literally any given time.
Yep.
No reaction?
Oh, no. I was started to plan on I was looking at my next one. I was getting ready to...
He loves it so much, he's speechless. Well, if you're going for the next one, I'm good with that.
No, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, I don't have much to add to that. You kind of covered it all. I do think like the idea of them using him like Cordell Patterson in that running back wide receiver role and having 2 of those guys on the team really kind of could change the NFL landscape, Wildcat style.
Yep. Now moving on to the now Giants at number 9 overall due to the trade with Seattle.
Yeah, so the Giants trade back a little bit, get a couple extra picks more than likely, and they still get the guy that they targeted at 7, Trayvon Walker, the edge out of Georgia. And let me tell you, the Giants needed an edge rusher, and this is a perfect one for him. It is a championship caliber edge rusher. He had a fantastic combine, and he will fit right into that Giants defense perfectly, which was already quite underrated and stellar last year.
Most certainly. This guy's going to be versatile. He's big. He can rush the passer. He can play the run. It's a great pickup for them, falling all the way to 9. And as we get closer to the draft, I think he's just going to keep jumping up draft boards more than he already has. And I don't know if he'll even make it to 9.
He might take him at 7 if not for the trade. So
yeah, certainly. Moving on to number 10 and the last of the New York picks, I got the Jets, and I have them taking tackle Charles Cross. Now, this guy has a natural fit at right tackle, so you get Mekhi Becton at your left tackle and Charles Cross, so 2 young guys there as your 2 tackles. And I really like this guy because he's got the pass protection, so he can give Zach Wilson some time to sit in the pocket and use his great arm talent and great arm ability to make some great throws. And another thing is the only real knock on Charles Cross is his ability to be a mauler in the run game. But when the Jets do run, they have a much quicker running back in Michael Carter, a shifty guy, and they do more of a zone run. So I think he can really thrive as a run blocker in that zone run scheme instead of a more power run scheme. So I think this is a great pick for them at 10.
If you know how to run that zone run scheme, then it's a lot easier for, I think, offensive linemen to learn that, depending on their weaknesses compared to that power run. Like, it would be a better fit for Cross to be in that zone run than that power run scheme.
Exactly, yep. So now moving on to the 11th overall pick with the Washington Commanders.
And the Commanders go and get some sauce with Ahmad Sauce Gardner, the top cornerback out of Cincinnati. Now, this is the guy who didn't allow his receiving touchdown his whole college career. So he's obviously a shutdown corner. He doesn't have a whole lot of interceptions, but that's all right because that means he doesn't play super aggressive. He just covers the receiver, unlike the Trayvon Diggs style, who, though aggressive and gets the interceptions, also gets burnt a lot sometimes and gives up the big plays. So Sauce isn't giving up the big plays, and that's just fine because he doesn't need to make the big plays if he's able to stop them.
Yeah, a guy who's sticky in man coverage and can say he never allowed a touchdown in his career is a lot more appealing to me than a guy who said, yeah, I got a bunch of interceptions, but I also got burnt every other play that I didn't get an interception. So great pickup here and a steal for them if he falls all the way to 11. Now, moving on to 12th overall and the Minnesota Vikings, But wait, I actually have my first trade of our little split mock draft here. Now, I don't think any teams will actually really want to jump up into this position. I actually think the Vikings are going to move back. I just don't see anybody left on the board that the Vikings are going to be like, we need to take this guy right now. We need to get him. I think they can move back 5, 6, 7 picks and still get who they want or a great player because of how deep this draft is at a lot of the positions we need, such as corner or edge or inside lineman. So I have us jumping back, and I have the Los Angeles Chargers actually being the one who agreed to move up. So now with the 12th overall pick, I have the Los Angeles Chargers taking Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher out of Florida State, who is just an absolute freak athlete. They jump in front of a few teams who I think can go edge rusher here, such as Texans and Baltimore, and get their guy. I know they have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa right now, but Mack's getting old, and they can still use a rotational guy. You don't have to use 2 great edge rushers all the time. You throw a little spice in there with Jermaine Johnson, who's just that quick freak athlete, and that can make your pass rushing attack even more deadly. So I think that's a good pickup for them.
Yeah, edge rusher is becoming like running back, where you got to have 2 or 3 good ones for it to really make out and fill out your defense. So for them to have Bosa and Mack and then a young stud and Jermaine Johnson behind them to learn and step in and spell those other guys, I mean, that's just almost it's unfair that the Chargers are able to get that much pass rushing help right now. And between Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and now you add Jermaine Johnson, who may be one of the top pure edge rushers, pass rushers to come out of this draft. So let me tell you, in that AFC West, there's the new quarterbacks, and at least the Chargers are stocking up to try to defend against them.
Certainly. So, moving on to number 13, and back to Houston. Who do you have the Texans taking?
The Texans go and take the top corner available in Derek Stingley Jr., another corner piece, another foundational piece to build, a cornerstone piece, is what I was trying to say, for them to really build around. And there was no pun intended there. I realized that there was one. But I think that they obviously need corner help. They need help everywhere. And right now they're just taking the best player available when their selection is up. And this is luckily another need for them to help really build out that defense. And, Lovie Smith, he's all about the defense. He's getting his defensive guys.
The Kayvon Thibodeau of the secondary in this draft. Derek Stingley's in a very similar situation where he came out as a freshman and absolutely balled out, played pretty well as a sophomore. And then it kind of seems like this last season, just with some injury problems and some effort problems, looked like he wasn't fully in it. But, just like you said with Rashad Gary, just like I think is going to happen with Kayvon Thibodeau, there's a great chance that he comes out, lights a fire under his ass, and becomes the player that he should be, and the Texans get an absolute steal getting him all the way back here at 13. So I like it. So now moving on to the 14th overall with the Baltimore Ravens, I have them taking tackle Trevor Penning out of UNI. This is just a mean man, to say the least. He is an absolute beast in the run game. He's solid in the pass protection game, and they have Alejandro Villanueva, I knew I'd mess his name up, but it's just bound to happen, retiring this season, so they need to fill in that gap there. They'll have Ronnie Stanley coming back, hopefully. So that could become a really good offensive line out of nowhere. And with that heavy run scheme that the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson at quarterback and J.K. Dobbins coming back at running back, you need an absolute mauler like Penning.
That's a perfect Baltimore Raven right there. He fits the mold for how that whole team is. He just seems like a Raven.
Certainly.
Solid pickup for him.
So, now moving on to the Eagles, first of 2 first-round picks. Who do you have them taking at 15?
I have them taking the cornerback out of Washington, Trent McDuffie. Now, the Eagles like their Washington cornerbacks. They took 2 of them in the past 6 years, one of them being Sidney Jones, who they have now traded. But they seem to keep going back to that well of the cornerbacks that come out of Washington. This one is just rising up draft boards right now. He had a solid combine. So I believe that they continue their trend and take the corner out of Washington.
I really like Trent McDuffie. A little undersized, but man, he plays much bigger than he actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So now moving on to 16, I have the New Orleans Saints. This is the pick that they, of course, just traded for, kind of jumped in front of the Chargers. And I have them taking defensive tackle Jordan Davis out of Georgia. Now this is, of course, the combine freak at 341. He ran a 4.7840 and had the farthest broad jump out of anybody ever at his position, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to start. Just a freak athlete. But with the way they kind of positioned themselves and did that short little jump up just to get ahead of the Chargers, I've seen a ton of mock drafts, and I kind of could see the Chargers taking Jordan Davis at 17. So that makes me think that they're jumping ahead of the Chargers to make this pick here with Jordan Davis. And another thing I really like, I look at Jordan Davis as much more of a 3-4 defensive tackle. Just with his size and quickness and ability to stop the run, I think that's a better fit for him. And the Eagles do currently run a 4-3, the Saints do currently run a 4-3, but with Sean Payton leaving and Dennis Allen coming up as head coach, I could see them maybe shifting that up a little bit, especially with some of the players they have. And hell, even if they don't, this guy is going to thrive in any defense, so it's a great pickup for them.
Yeah, there's always one guy who has a combine performance that just blows everyone out of the water. And this was the guy this year. Now, it wasn't just his 40 time, but he was able to at least perform everywhere else. It's not... I hate it when they fall in love with guys just because they have a blazing 40 speed. Now, at least he was able to perform in the other aspects of the combine and do really well, including that broad jump. That really shows your explosiveness off the line.
Yep. So now to pick 17, Callan with the Vikings due to the earlier trade.
Yep, so this is originally the Chargers spot, traded to the Vikings, and the Vikings select Andrew Booth Jr., the cornerback out of Clemson. They get a championship caliber corner. They just re-signed Pat Pete, and I think that's not only for on-field purposes, but for coaching purposes also. And what a what a guy to learn from is Pat Pete. I mean,
legend, cornerback legend.
So, I mean, they're going to get a solid man to come in here. I mean, he's still going to play. It's like he's going to sit. There's anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 corners out on the field at the time. And I think that Andrew Booth can step in and play right alongside Cam Dantzler and Pat Pete.
Yep, I really like Andrew Booth. If we could get him at 17, I wouldn't complain, not going to lie. So, moving on to pick 18, I have the Eagles this time, and I have them making an easy selection, freaking sprinting to the podium and taking center out of Iowa, Tyler Lindenbaum. Now, with Jason Kelsey retiring, I know they do currently have Landon Dickerson, who they just got last year, who played center out of Bama when they picked him up. Mm-hmm. But you get Linderbaum and Dickerson. God, the two L's are messing me up. You get Tyler Lindenbaum and Landon Dickerson. You can just pick your potion, put one at center, put one at right guard, whichever way you see fit, because they are going to work out no matter what combination you want to put them at, and you are going to have an elite level inside offensive line for years to come.
Yeah, that's quite a duo in the middle for them to double team up there.
Yep, I love that pick for them. I think that is like best case scenario for them. So, Callan, who do you have with the Saints this time at 19?
With the Saints pick, I have them taking wide receiver at USC, Drake London. Thought of as possibly the top receiver in this draft. It just goes to show that each team could have a different positional ranking, because Treylon Burks ended up being the first receiver to go, even though many have Drake London as the top receiver available. Michael Thomas is iffy to come back. They say he is, but took a year off. There was all that tumultuous relationship ordeal. So this way they get a top receiver to come in and replace him.
Yep.
Or team up with them.
Exactly. I know I had Treylon Burks going at 8, but just like Callan talked about, that was more of a fit thing, because Drake London is by far my favorite receiver in this draft. I think he's going to be so good. You have a lot of deep threats on that roster there in New Orleans right now. And then you have Michael Thomas, who is more of a route runner, all-around guy. So just get this physical beast in Drake London. Great in the open field. Is going to make all those contested catches for Jameis. Great pickup for them at 19. So moving on to 20 with the Steelers. I have the Steelers taking guard Zion Johnson out of Boston College. This is a great fit for their power run scheme because this guy is an absolute beast in the run game. He had the highest bench press out of anybody in this year's combine at 32, I want to say. And he's going to get in front of Najee Harris, and he's going to open up a ton of holes. I know that they just got a few big free agent signings in the inside of their offensive line, and guys like Mason Cole from Minnesota and James Daniels from Chicago. But you can still plug this guy in. They still have Kevin Dotson, but you'll find a spot for this guy, even if it's in front of Mason Cole, because not only did he play right guard, but he even played a little center there at Boston College. So you can put him anywhere, and he's going to get a push for you.
Flexibility is good. Plus, this guy's just an athletic freak. I mean, last year, this guy was playing basketball for the New Orleans Pelicans. Or wait, wrong guy?
Oh, yeah.
Wrong guy. Whoops. Got to clear those notes. Wrong guy. No, no, but really though, his flexibility is what I look at the most. The fact that he could play left guard, center, or right guard. Injuries are going to happen, and not only could he be a future starter, but he could be a replacement there in his first year.
Yep, I really like that pick for them. So, Callan, who do you have the Patriots taking at 21?
The Patriots go and possibly get the steal of the draft by going and selecting Jameson Williams.
Ooh, a little bit.
Yep, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Or Jameson Williamson. Is it Williamson or Williams?
I think it's Williamson. I don't know what I have written down, but...
So, he obviously is the one who tore his ACL in the national title game. He is way ahead of schedule on his recovery. They just went and picked up Devontae Parker, who has not totally panned out. So if his guy flames out, they got a huge physical specimen to back him up for next year, or even possibly at the end of this year, depending on how his ACL recovery goes.
Yeah, he's way ahead of schedule, like you just said, so it's going to be so fun to see where he goes. He can literally go anywhere from like 5 to second round. It's insane the range this guy has just because of his injury. But he's probably one of the best wide receivers in the draft pre-injury. So as long as he comes back, he's going to be a beast and a steal for somebody.
I see where I got mixed up. You had Zion Johnson at 20 and Jameson Williamson at 21. My eyes just had Zion Williamson.
Oh, is that?
So I see.
There you go. Zion, basketball, football, they're all sports. They're all the same. It doesn't really matter. Next up, I have the Packers at 22 overall, and I have them taking a wide receiver, a first-round wide receiver.
Not going to happen.
Who'd have thought? I have them
happen.
taking Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State. This is one of the best all-around wide receivers in the draft. They call this guy Mr. Natural. He just can do it all. He's got great hands. He's a solid route runner, and he's even got the speed to be a pretty decent deep threat. So they need a Devontae Adams replacement. Get a guy who can do all the things a good receiver can do. And
doesn't matter where you put him, the X, Y, or the Z, he can perform in any spot on the field. It'd be a hell of a pickup if Green Bay gets him. I don't see them drafting a wide receiver in the first round. It just seems more and more like, they have to do it. Seems like, no, they're not going to, because that's the smoke screen. The team that seems like they have to do something is always the team that doesn't do it. I do think that they will take a wide receiver and with one of these first 4 picks, but I don't see it being in the first round.
We've had a lot of years in a row with deep wide receiver classes, but that well's gonna run dry. So I think you should get ahead of it while you still can. But moving on to the Cardinals at 23, who do you have?
I have them taking the edge George Karlaftis out of Purdue. Now Cardinals lost Chandler Jones, so they needed someone to step up on the other side of that 4-3. You got J.J. Watt on one end, and then I think Karlaftis just fits perfectly on that other end of that defensive side. He's almost I would say he's comparable to J.J. Watt, just in terms of size, strength, and motor. I mean, this guy just never quits. And he get both of those guys at the edge of for Arizona, you're going to have two locomotive trains coming at you as for the opposing quarterback.
Oh, man. George Karlaftis is way underrated in my opinion. He's one of my favorite edges in this draft class just because the sheer amount of effort and heart this guy plays with. I think he could be a sneaky one that ends up being one of the best edge rushers out of this draft class within the next few years. So, huge pickup for the Cardinals at 23. Moving on to 24, I have the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm going back into that inside offensive lineman jar and picking out Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. Now, they have a very questionable inside of their offensive line, and they've lost a lot of offensive linemen overall, even on the outside of that offensive line this offseason. So you pick up a guy here, you can plug him in at either right or left guard, considering they just lost Connor Williams in free agency, and Zach Martin is getting up there in age. You let him start at left guard maybe, and then move him back to his more natural position at right guard. And this guy's just so athletic, he can do it all. I'd really love to see them get an inside lineman here.
Yeah, at one point the Cowboys had one of the best offensive lines I've ever seen. They had, I think, almost 4 or 5 Pro Bowlers, I believe.
Yep.
And that was obviously now a few years ago, so they need to retool this offensive line, rebuild it, and the way to start doing that is what they did with it in the beginning. Just draft first-round picks out of the offensive line, and eventually they got a whole line of Pro Bowlers to help lead that way.
Certainly. Okay, now moving on to 25 in the Bills. Who do you got?
I got the Bills taking another surprise, and the first running back drafted, Breece Hall out of Iowa State. I think that his skill set fits perfectly into what Buffalo wants to do, because the way that they've used Devin Singletary, they want to be more that receiving back, not run as much, being a pass protector, and Breece Hall is able to do all of that.
Love that fit there in Buffalo, exactly like you just said, and I think he's a much better actual runner than Devin Singletary is, so they can develop him up a little bit. They could get a great backfield there with Josh Allen and this guy for the next 5-10 years to come, so great pickup for them. Moving on to 26 with the Titans. I said it last time and I'll say it again. Close your eyes and throw a dart at a depth chart and you will find somewhere on that Titans defense where they are struggling. So now I have them going linebacker again, but this time I actually have them going a different linebacker. I got them going Devin Lloyd, the middle linebacker out of Utah this time. Last time I had them going to Nakobe Dean, who plays with a lot more heart and effort. But I think Devin Lloyd just has a lot more natural talent. He can fly sideline to sideline. He can cover. He can rush the passer. He can stop the run. This guy can do it all. He is an all-around beast, and he was pretty much that Utah defense last year. And aside from a few pieces, he might need to step up and pretty much be that defense again. So,
yeah, this is the top off-the-ball linebacker available in the draft. I think that he is one of the better players, and if not for just positional ranking and need, he should have gone higher. But because, now everybody needs a middle linebacker, off-the-ball linebacker, he falls to the Titans, who I'm sure are very ecstatic to get him.
Certainly. Moving on to 27 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who do you got?
I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers selecting an Ndamukong Suh replacement for them on the defensive line with Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. Another championship caliber defensive lineman to fit right in with that championship caliber team. Another combine superstar. He has a play style that is similar to the Ndamukong Suh's, and that way they can just plug and play it right there.
You'd love to see some versatility on that defensive line. This guy may not be as big or as good as a run stopper as Jordan Davis, his fellow Georgia defensive tackle, but he can rush the passer much better. And it's so fun to see when you get a defensive tackle who's quick and can rush the passer, because the fastest way to any point is in a straight line. So when you have a defensive tackle just blow up and go straight through the middle of that offensive line, it can wreak havoc on a quarterback's day.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to 28, my pick with the Packers' second first-round pick. Now, when you're adopting children, they say that if they're siblings, you should adopt them together so you can keep the siblings together, make sure they stay together. So, why not do that when drafting? I have the Packers not only going with another wide receiver, I have them going with another Ohio State wide receiver in the deep threat of Chris Olave. You already go back to pick 22 and you get Garrett Wilson, and now you get a deep threat in Chris Olave. Fix your past mistakes of not taking first-round wide receivers by doubling down on it this year in this great receiver class. And no better way to replace an elite receiver than with two pretty damn good young receivers.
That would be quite awesome if we really did get both of those guys. There was at one point in time where Chris Olave was looked at as not only the top receiver in the draft, but possibly the number one overall pick. So he had kind of a down year last year, and then he built it back up with that combine performance. I would love it if we had got both receivers. If we're not going to draft a receiver in the first round, or if we are going to draft one, we need to just do it with both of our first round
Go
picks.
all in. That's what I'm saying.
Just double down. Like you said, make up for past mistakes by doubling down. You get Rodgers 2 first-round pick receivers. Then you can't show that stat anymore of, touchdowns thrown in on first-round picks or all defensive except for Jordan Love. So either don't select one in the first round or select 2 in the first round.
Yep. And then what I really like about this pick is you get a little bit of everything on that Packers receiving core if you take these two guys. You have Olave, who's the deep threat. You get Garrett Wilson, who's just the all-around solid route runner receiver. And then you get Lazard, who may not be the greatest receiver, but he's a hell of a blocker. And that's something you need in a receiving core, is at least one guy who's willing to get out there and get nasty on those corners and put them on the ground.
Alan Lazard reminds me of Hines Ward.
Yep. I don't really like Alan Lazard, but I do respect the hell out of a blocking receiver.
You gotta give props to someone.
I'll give him that every day of the week.
Throws a block, yeah. You think he went to Iowa, not Iowa State. But.
Exactly. So now moving on to the first of the Chiefs back-to-back first-round picks, 29. Who do you got, Calvin?
I got them taking Daxton Hill, the safety out of Michigan. Now, they obviously released Tyrann Mathieu, and their big thing with him was that he didn't play in the box and he wasn't able to hit anyone. Well, Daxton Hill is the opposite of that. He plays in the box and he wants to hit people. So if they want an in-the-box safety, which I believe that they do, then this is the perfect one to fit perfectly in their scheme.
Yep, I like it. And then I'll just jump to mine with the Chiefs at 30 because I have them going straight back to that secondary and taking Auburn corner Roger McCreary. Now, this guy has been kind of sliding down draft boards, but I still really like him. He's got great ball skills. He's got long arms. He's great in man coverage. And that's kind of what they look for there in Kansas City. Because if you look at who they've kind of leaned on and who they've drafted in the past, they want fast guys who can get in the receiver's face and play sticky man coverage. So why not get another one? And with an offense like that, you really rely on interceptions and turnovers from your defense. And McCreary has some of the best ball skills, in my opinion, pretty much in this entire draft. So I think that's the pick for them.
Yeah, they really need to rebuild that defense. Well, not rebuild, but retool that defense. They lost, losing Tyrann Mathieu. They lost a couple of corners in Fuller and Charvarius Ward. Yeah. So they have to get some players to, stock back up, and I think they get 2 solid ones with those 2 picks.
Yeah, I think their number one corner right now is like Rashad Fenton, who's nothing against him, but they need someone else. They need to fill that up.
They need some more bodies in there.
So, moving on to 31. Callan, what do you got?
So, the Cincinnati Bengals are sitting here at 31. They went and signed about 17 offensive linemen, so they don't need to draft one anymore. I know they were looking at David Ojabo, but he blew out his Achilles. Probably won't play this year. You could probably get him in the 2nd or 3rd round now. So, they look for a trade partner. And who calls but Bill Belichick, wanting to get back into the 1st round, to trade back into the 1st round to select Kaiir Elam, the perfect Patriot player. This guy has the pedigree. Both his dad and his uncle were longtime NFL players. He is a very smart player. He was looked at as one of the top corners available. And even though the New England re-signed Malcolm Butler, he's coming off of a year absence. This way they get a player that they could plug and play right away, and it will fit perfectly in the Belichick system.
Florida has a good track record of producing some sneaky good corners. So, and like you said, I love the fit with him there in New England. So great pick overall. And then finally, to wrap up the 2022 NFL Draft, I have the Lions taking Nakobe Dean with the final pick of the first round, 32nd overall. Now, when you have a coach who has as much heart as Dan Campbell, how do you pass up a player with as much heart and grit as Nakobe Dean? This guy can lead a defense. He's so smart. He's always in the right place. He will do whatever he needs you to do, whatever you need him to do to win a game. He proved that when he won a national championship there in Georgia. And it would be so fun to watch Nakobe Dean and Dan Campbell celebrate on the sidelines. I feel like that would be a hype moment. So great pickup for them, and a steal at 32 if you ask me. I would be shocked if this guy slipped into the second round. So.
Oh yeah, if Detroit's up and he's there, they got to take him, because like you said, that's another cornerstone piece that they can build that defense around that really matches the energy that Dan Campbell gives off. And that is a very unique amount of energy.
It might almost be like a nuclear freaking meltdown if those two get together. The reactor's going to blow up, and there's just going to be no...
that's Detroit. Actually, that sounds about
that sounds just like Detroit, right? It was all I could do to not put Sam Howell here at 32, but I had to take my Sam Howell fanboy shirt off and put on a regular shirt and take Nakobe Dean.
I don't know if any quarterbacks will really get taken in the first round.
There's a chance that doesn't happen. I would not be crazy surprised at all.
But I do agree that when one gets taken, teams will panic.
Oh yeah,
and other teams will panic, and someone will then jump up and possibly either trade back into the first round or trade up in the first round to get a quarterback that they think that they need.
Yep. So that was our mock draft. Before we quite wrap it up, I just want to make a quick little statement thing, I guess. Kyle Hamilton has been really dropping in draft boards recently. So I just want to say, if he falls to 12 and the Vikings take him, you're going to see me be the happiest I have probably ever been on camera, because I am going to be jumping around so hype if we get a direct Harrison Smith replacement like that at 12. I think the only way we don't trade back is if Kyle Hamilton is there. And if he's there at 10, I'd almost warrant trading up just to make sure you get him. But I don't know. He's my favorite player, so if we actually got him at 12, if he fell to us, I would be ecstatic to say the least. But I just want to say that quick before we wrap it up.
It can't happen.
God, I know. I kind of agree.
It can't happen.
I'm keeping my hopes low, but God, do I want it to happen. So that was our first round split mock draft. Keep watching Eating W's. We'll probably just have a regular weekly update next week, but then the week after that will be the final week before the draft, and Cal and I will each have one more final mock draft before the actual draft happens. So certainly keep tuned in, keep an eye on the channel, but until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.